Fred Richani of the Sports Courier, pleased to be joined by a true legend, one of the godfathers of mixed martial arts, the UFC legend, a WWE legend. He is the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Mr. Shamrock, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you very much for having me on.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to chat with us. Now, you haven't fought since November of 2010, and some fans might be wondering, what's Ken up to these days? So I'll throw that question up to you first.
Well, I'll tell you, I got a few projects going. I got a documentary that's coming out, and I have a partnership here in Reno with a bodyguard service and also a bail bonds. So we're going to be doing a reality show on that with me transferring from being a professional fighter and, of course, a professional wrestler. And how does a professional athlete transfer his time from being in the ring and fighting and training all the time into an industry of how do you make those two things work together? So it's just been quite interesting. I know we sent it out to the station today. They're looking at it on the end of the day. On Friday, we'll sit down and have a meeting and find out what it is that they want to do with it, whether change it, keep it the same, and then we'll probably have it on air within 3 to 4 months.
Awesome. That sounds very interesting. Now, are you done fighting, or are you still leaving that door open for 1 or 2 more big fights?
Yeah, I'm leaving that door open because I'm always in shape. I'm in great shape. I always want to stay in shape because I believe that if you're physically fit and you're continuing to train and you love doing what you're doing, then I say do it as long as you can and as long as you're having fun and as long as the fans want to see you.
Well said there, sir. And any chances we could see you back in a wrestling ring, or are those days long gone?
No, I hope so. I've been trying to get back into the WWE with no response up to this point. So we'll just wait and see what happens, but I'd love to get in there. TNA, I was the first heavyweight champion there. I put out feelers to TNA to try to get in there and do something there. So, yeah, pro wrestling is definitely something I'd love to do again, but I'm just waiting to see whether or not they'll have me.
Yeah, actually, that's funny. I was going to ask you a lot about your TNA run, your WWE run. A lot of people don't know you're actually in the WWE 13 video game. Are you going to be in WWE 2K14?
They haven't told me yet, so I don't know. It's a lot of times they just do it, and I find out about it later.
Well, I'm sure it's not bad to get a nice little check from WWE every now and then.
Oh, absolutely. It's always nice to receive a little money here and there.
Yeah, and we'll get to your MMA days, but since you brought up pro wrestling, some people tend to forget, because of your great feud with Tito, that you were also one of the big stars in the Attitude Era, which is one of the hottest, if not the hottest period in professional wrestling history. What are your memories of that wild time going head-to-head with WCW?
Well, I remember that Vince McMahon was looking to change the game. And that's my middle name, is changing the game. I've done it everywhere I've gone. I've always been able to change the way things were done and up the ante. Vince went out and got me to come in because at that time, MMA was huge. The submission stuff was huge. And so Vince was looking to find an angle that would surpass the WCW because, one, they took all their stars. 2, their ratings were a lot better. And 3, Vince needed to change things up in order to have a chance to stay alive. Very brilliant when it comes to that stuff. Vince had done it many, many times before. He came out, he got me, the world's most dangerous man, brought me in, and refereed the match with Bret, Hart, Stone Cold. I quit match. And if you watch the match, and you watch the way wrestling was before that match and before my time going in there with the submissions and everything, and you watch them now, it is a game changer. It changed the face of wrestling. So what you see now today is fast, high-flying, and a lot of submission holds.
Yeah, that match at WrestleMania 13, arguably the greatest match in WrestleMania history, one of the greatest matches in pro wrestling history. Did you feel the magic and the magnitude of that match when you were in the ring, or did you feel it after watching it back?
No, I felt it because when I was in the ring and they were going against each other, I mean, they were literally catering each other. I mean, those guys were definitely they were after each other pretty good, and it was very impressive to be in there refereeing it, and at the same time watching these guys get after each other. Very intense, very aggressive, and very, very close to real as you can get.
Yeah, and at the time, you know, you had stepped away from MMA to do WWE, then known as the World Wrestling Federation. Was it tough for you to leave mixed martial arts at the time because you were a big star in PANCRASE, you were a big star in the UFC, or did you kind of see where the money was going and thought, you know what, I think I could do pretty well here?
No, I was put into a spot where Bob Meyerowitz and SEG owned UFC at the time. And I had a good relationship with Bob Meyerowitz, very, very upfront with me. I know a lot of people, you know, didn't have a relationship with him, and so I don't know what happened. But I know with me and him personally, he always talked to me. He was always upfront with me. He always gave me options, and he really just told me, you know, because of the political things that were going on with trying to shut the UFC down, and every town that he went to, he was in court for 2 or 3 weeks prior to the event, trying to get them to release the funds and to release the sanctioning, and, you know, trying to get around all the stupid rules that they were trying to throw in to kill the MMA fight scene. So he was at battle all the time, and then it got to a point where he just couldn't afford to pay me what I needed to be paid to support my family. And what we really agreed upon was contractual. And he just said, listen, Ken, this is, I hate to say it, you know, but I just, you know, this is where we're at right now. I'm constantly fighting with these guys. You know, I'm getting drained, and I'm going to have to sell this thing. And he let me know up front that I needed to be looking elsewhere because he just didn't know how long they were going to be able to hang on. So I went out there and I started thinking of things I could do. And my dad was a huge wrestling fan, and I had watched it with him several times. And he goes, why don't you try wrestling? And I was like, you know what? That sounds interesting. I bet you I could transfer what I learned in MMA into pro wrestling, which is stuff they have never seen before. It'd be a great opportunity to really showcase MMA. And so when I went in there, I went and worked with Bret Hart in Calgary, and used to work with him, and he basically showed me how to do the things that I did in MMA with my submissions and all that, and showed me how to format it into a pro wrestling format. And so when I went in, I went to get Big Van Vader and had our first match, and it was tremendous for my first match in the WWF. It was an awesome match. It was almost a shoot match. It was pretty stiff, but I really enjoyed it. And as time went on, I really got a pretty good welcoming from most of the people that were there because I knew that I was a shooter and this is what they did. Even though I was coming in on top, I had to let them know, I know I'm a rookie. I know that I haven't earned that right to be here, not in this world, but it is what it is, and I'm here to learn. So, you know what? I'm all ears. You know, let me know what it is we got to do to get this thing over so we both look good and that we both can be happy when we walk out of the ring. And it was real receptive. They were, you know, other than one guy out of all of them, I got along with pretty well. And even the one guy that we had a confrontation with, it was just a short confrontation. I think he still holds more animosity towards me than I do him, but that's his issue, not mine. But other than that, I got along with everybody.
Yeah, and one of the surreal things looking back now is the fact that UFC and WWE actually kind of co-promoted at the time as well, which I don't think that's something we'd be seeing today. Do you think it would benefit both sides to kind of co-promote with each other?
I'm one of those kind of people that think it can't hurt people to work together. I just never saw that. Even competitors, it's almost like you would probably want to try and at least work together at some point for a competition, because competition breeds people's interest. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think anytime you can create some sort of controversy, some sort of competition, just like WCW and WWF, or at the time WWF, and the controversy were there with them taking some of the top guys, and then the points ratings, and who was going to win Monday Night Raw, and then Thursday SmackDown came around, and who was going to get better ratings. And it piqued everybody's interest, and both sides won on that.
What did you think about their Brawl For All concept? Were you ever approached to participate in that, or did they kind of know better not to approach you because you probably would have just destroyed everybody?
No, see, that's the funny thing is that they did approach me. And it didn't make sense to me when they did because, one, they were putting boxing gloves on us. And, you know, even though I could strike, they were putting big gloves, and I could wrestle, but with those gloves on, they only had about 10 seconds on the ground to do anything, and those big old gloves, you really couldn't do anything on the ground. So it was almost like I didn't realize what they were doing. Were they trying to get me beat? Because it could have gone, with the boxing and all that, it could have gone either way. Because you can't, it was really difficult to do any submissions at all with those big old gloves on. And then me being a professional fighter like I was, I came into WWF to leave that behind and gain everybody's trust in the locker room so that I could go into a ring with them and then have confidence. They would have confidence in me that I was going to be where I needed to be. And by putting me in there in that situation and then trying to bring me back to being a fighter, after all the work I put in to get people's trust, I felt it was a bad move for me to do that. So they did offer it to me, and I told them that I refused. I said, I don't want to do that. I want to stay pro wrestling. I want to learn this craft, and I want to get really good at it. So I turned it down.
And what are your thoughts on the state of WWE right now and overall the state of pro wrestling? I mean, they've been #1 since WCW's demise, almost by default. I mean, TNA, I thought, had a chance to kind of really carve their niche. They tried to be WWE light. It didn't work out so well for them. They're kind of on the downswing. Do you think wrestling can go back to being on the up and up, or do you think it's just going to be status quo for a little while?
No, I think it's got peaks and valleys. You know, you look at boxing. Boxing is, you know, it's done a few years where it's gone down, and it looks like it's going to die out, and then boom, a star comes along, and all of a sudden, boom, you got your show back. You know, it takes one character to step in, and then all of a sudden, people are going, "Wow, hey, did you see what's his name, man? That's pretty cool. I'm gonna watch it." And then all of a sudden, it's booming again, and then next thing you know, someone else comes behind them, and so then you're flying again. It's kind of like with the UFC. You know, when I came in there, and Bush Gracie came in there, and that feud really lit the fuse for UFC to be what it is today. If there was none of that, who knows if it would have made it? It flops on its face and it's gone forever because people didn't understand submissions. They didn't understand what's going on. Was it real? Was it fake? You know? But because of the feud and the character that me and always had, we lit the fuse to get that thing exploded. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, I think WWE will come back. I think it's just a matter of time before things click and it jumps up because, one, it's got all the money it needs to keep going. It's got the production it needs to keep going. And so all you're waiting for now is for some sort of angle or some sort of character to click. And it will. You just got to keep going. And pretty soon it'll jump out.
And as a submissions guy, as an MMA guy, are you happy with the fact that there's kind of been more focus on the in-ring with guys like CM Punk, with guys like Daniel Bryan, who don't necessarily have an MMA background, but they've trained in combat sports before?
I like it. I like it when you get well-rounded guys in there and they can do all the stuff they need to do for pro wrestling, but yet they also know how to break your ankle or snap an arm. It adds legitimacy to these characters, these guys who are legitimately badasses, you know. I mean, they do pro wrestling, but, you know, a fan jumps into the ring, man, they're going to be able to take them down and put them in some world of hurt. So I like that. I like that wrestling is going back to the old school, back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, where you had all these guys, Carl Gotch and Lou Thesz, you know, I mean, guys that were little shooters that, you know, even, what's his name, Hart, Bret Hart's dad.
Stu Hart.
I mean, there's so many guys that were back then who people knew not to mess with them. And so it's good to see that coming back again with pro wrestling, where you got guys in there that people know are legitimate shooters and that, you know, don't mess with them.
And do you think a lot of MMA fighters kind of need to take some notes from pro wrestlers in a sense of how to promote themselves? Because you were great at doing that back in the day. Obviously, your most famous rival, Tito Ortiz, was excellent at doing that. Your brother, Frank, did a great job of promoting himself as well. I see far too many guys, like the UFC, like they'll have John Anik, they'll have Joe Rogan, they'll ask a guy, you know, fighter A, fighter B, whatever his name is, and they'll say, who do you want to fight next? And they'll just say, oh, well, you know, Joe Silva, Dana White, they do a great job. And I'm thinking, this is your chance to call somebody out. You're going to fight somebody anyway. You're going to get punched in the face anyway. Why not make a name for yourself? Do you feel like that's lacking a lot in MMA these days, where guys don't know how to promote themselves outside of, you know, Chael Sonnen and a select few?
Well, this is what I think is happening. I think a lot of these guys are so afraid to piss off the brass, to piss off Dana White or the Fertittas or somebody who's above them, because they may not get a shot in the UFC again. So everybody's walking around with tight sphincters. They're afraid to come out and be themselves, because if they make a mistake, they won't be there. And, you know, those guys that are in the office there need to step back and start letting these guys be jackasses if they need to be, if that's who they are. They need to start letting their own characters come out and be who they are. You know, just like they did Brock Lesnar, and then they shut him down. You know, some of the things he couldn't do contractually, you know, I mean, he can't do that, get people sued and in trouble. But, you know, don't put a cap on people who, that's their just nature. It's like Tank Abbott. If they would have came in and said, Tank, don't be flipping people off or calling people names, you know, that's disrespectful. It's like they would have killed his character. And I think that that's what's happening today, is that Dana White and a lot of these guys want them to act the way they want them to act, because they feel like they can walk up to any of these big badass guys and tell them what to do, and it makes them feel good. The problem with that is you're hurting the characters. You need to step back, stay out of the way, and let them go.
You and the UFC haven't gotten along for a number of years, but we've seen stranger things happen in the world of combat sports and sports entertainment. I mean, Vince McMahon and Bruno Sammartino, of all people, made amends this year. A few years back, Vince McMahon and Bret Hart made amends after 15 years of that whole controversy with the Montreal Screwjob and everything. How likely is it within the next few years that we could see you and Dana White make amends, or do you just kind of go with the flow and see what happens?
Listen, I got nothing against Dana White. You know, I know my issues. I know my problems. I have a problem. I speak my mind. And the one thing I always tell people is, even when I speak my mind, doesn't mean I'm right. I'll speak my mind on the information that I have and what I think is going on or is right. It's not the gospel. So why get mad over it? Why get pissed off and start throwing temper tantrums when it's wrong? Then show me. Show me it's wrong. Prove it to me it's wrong. Make me look like, hey, okay, I'm sorry. I was wrong. But none of that's being done. It's more like getting all pissed off and defensive. And that right there bothers me, because if you do that, then more than likely you're guilty. You're lying. And so it's not that I don't, and I can even do that and still be friends with guys. I don't hold grudges on that stuff. I speak my mind. Someone else speaks their mind. That's fine with me. But don't walk up and call me a liar. Because if you do, I'm going to go, you know what? That's not true. And I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove you wrong. I'm not lying. And, you know, and that's okay. But it seems like every time something goes down, Dana White threatens people with their jobs. He tells them, you're not going to work here again. You won't do interviews. You won't be here doing this. You won't report on any of this stuff. I'll run you out of town. I mean, it's all these threats, and he uses the power that he has to try and threaten people, man, and that's an abuse. It's wrong. You shouldn't do that. And I don't hold a grudge against Dana. I don't hate Dana, and, you know, I have my issues with Dana because of some of the things that he's doing. But, hey, if that's the problem, prove me wrong, man. Then we can, you know, whatever. We'll move past it. Go. But that's not going to happen. Dana White will hold a grudge. Dana White will get his panties in a wad, and he'll keep throwing his little bitch fits. And I can't understand why he just won't put it to rest. Prove people wrong.
Now, have you gone out of your way in recently to maybe kind of squash any beef that's with him, or have you kind of just given up at this point?
No, I haven't really thought much about it. I mean, I kind of just go on and do my thing. The thing that is going on, which is also another thing that is just absolutely ridiculous, is that they always do things so like dumb, like trying to push me out of the rankings and talking about how people who have changed the face of MMA. and never mention me in that. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, how do you not mention me when you talk about big fights that changed MMA? I've had at least 3 of them in the UFC that put them over the top at different times. I think every time I fought in the UFC, other than later in the years when I was 40, but like my first 7 fights, 8 fights in the UFC, every single fight that I fought broke the record before that. So it was like, how do you not mention me as being a game changer, a person who's changed the face of MMA in so many different ways, big fights at critical times? How do you not mention that? You know, how do you not put me in that category? And so when it gets personal like that and you start trying to change the rules your way, change history your way because you're mad at somebody, that's where I think the buck has to stop. That's where I think people need to step in and go, you know what, no matter how you think somebody is or how bad you think somebody is, you don't have a right to change history.
Yeah, and I get the feeling, too, with a lot of fans, like they talk about that Griffin-Bonner fight, which was a great fight, by the way. I know it was an awesome fight.
It wasn't a great fight. It was an entertaining fight.
Okay, yeah, it was an entertaining fight. And a lot of people talk about that, and a lot of people talk about that as the game changer for the UFC. If that didn't happen, the boom period would have never happened. And I'm thinking, wait a second, what about, you know, Ken Shamrock? What about Rich Franklin? What about the Tito Ortiz feud? Do you feel like you guys don't get enough credit for and I know Tito's at odds with Dana for whatever reason and whatever. That's his business. But do you feel like you're specifically you and Tito? Do you feel like you guys don't get enough credit for turning around not just MMA, UFC, but the sport of MMA?
Absolutely, man. I think it goes all the way back to me and Royce Gracie, and then me and Tito, me and Dan Severn, me and Chemo. It does, and that's what I'm talking about. Is because someone doesn't like somebody, they get to change the history of something that's happened. When they said that, I almost fell out of my chair because they said that was the thing that really lifted MMA up. That was absolutely crazy to think that. Yes, those guys had a good fight, a very entertaining fight. But when people say that was a great fight, I look at them and go, okay, I understand when fans say that and that guys that don't train say that they're looking at it just as an entertainment aspect of it. I understand why they say that. But when you got a guy like Dana White and some other guys out there who actually fighters say that was a great fight, it was like a rock 'em, sock 'em robot thing where people stood there and see who was going to knock each other's head off first without moving. We're just going to hit each other and see which one falls down first. No head movement, absolutely no punch combinations, and with lateral movement and taking angles. They stood in front of each other and beat the hell out of each other, which was entertaining. I loved it. I did. I really loved it. But a great fight? No.
And Tito Ortiz is back in MMA. He retired. He unretired. So yet another MMA fighter pulling a Terry Funk. He's taking on Quentin Rampage Jackson November 2nd, Long Beach, California for Bellator MMA's very first pay-per-view. Do you think Tito's making a mistake coming out of retirement after not looking good the last few years, or do you support him?
No, I support him. I support anybody that wants to do what they want to do. I support anybody that's put in the time and entertained the fans for years and then want to come back and they still have an itch to fight. I think they deserve that. I think they've earned the right to finish when they want to finish, not when everybody else tells them to finish.
Right, but I mean, he's health-wise, he hasn't been that good the last couple years. He had back surgery, he had neck surgery. I mean, I guess if he's getting his money, you know what I mean, and he's healthy enough to fight, good for him. I'm framing it more from like a health perspective because, yeah, I mean, every fight you'd see him, whether it be against Forrest Griffin, Ryan Bader, it's like, oh, I had back surgery or I just had neck surgery like 2 weeks ago. It's like, man, how many surgeries are you having?
Yeah, I was in the same boat with him though, But, the thing with this is that if you take away what makes somebody tick, if you take that away from them, then and it's just like the longer, and a lot of athletes are afraid of that. When you stop something, that's when you get old. That's when all the injuries come back and they haunt you even more. As long as you're staying fit, staying in shape, and you keep training, those injuries are basically supported by the muscles that you've developed during your training time. But when you stop doing that, your training goes away and you stop training. All that muscle that you developed and the strength that you developed to support those injuries are not there anymore, so they get worse as time goes on. So I think people need to look at it from an aspect of being healthy and being able to keep training and have a reason to train for it. And have a reason for that is to, one, it makes me feel good. I still enjoy it. I love it. And it also helps support my injuries because I get to keep those muscles that I developed over the years stronger for a longer period of time to help support those old injuries I've had. So I think with me was that when I was in Japan, I was 29 years old. And I went over there and I dominated Japan. I beat Bas Rutten, you know. I beat different guys that had come. Excuse me, I'm kind of yawning right now. But I beat guys that were in the UFC, like Takahashi, Yamada. A lot of guys that came into the UFC that came from Japan first. And I beat all of them. I was on top of the world. Then I go into the UFC 2.5 years later. I'm 32 years old. I start my first fight at 32 years old in the UFC. I dominate the UFC. After I lost twice the first time, I promised it would never happen again. I would never get submitted again in the UFC in that ring, and it never did happen. I promised myself that I was going to go to work, go hard, and I would never get submitted again, and I didn't. I remembered that very clearly at the dance. We was walking around the new sheriff in town. I promised myself next time I got in the ring with him, I would beat him. And I did that. I got in the ring, I beat him into a pole. And I carried him out of the ring after that. Watching this transition go, I was 32 years old. By the time I slowed down, I was 36. 36 years old. From 32 to 36, I dominated the UFC. And really, after putting 2.5 years into hard training in Japan, trying to learn the craft. It was only 2.5 years I did it before I went into the UFC with learning submissions and all that. And prior to that, I did football and wrestling, so a whole life of doing sports. And then I'm standing there at the age of 38 years old, going in the ring with Tito Ortiz, who was in his prime. And I remember looking down, I just had, my knee was screwed up. I could hardly move. I'm walking into the ring thinking I'll find a way to win. I go 3 rounds with him. I get beat down. I can't really do anything to him. I remember the fight was over, and I knew in my mind that the sport had passed me by. And I needed to figure out another way to be able to stay in this thing and compete. And I remember I had to go get surgery. I got that done. I fought him again. I remember just before that fight, I blew my ACL out again, right before the fight. And very, very disappointed. And then, of course, my shoulder, the next time I fought him, I blew my shoulder out. So I was looking at trying to fight at that level because I was always seemed to be like older than most people because I started at a real long in the tooth age. And I was always seemed like I was always fighting uphill, trying to get over injuries, trying to work harder than the next guy because I was older and I wasn't healing as fast. And I was able to do that for a long period of time. And then when that very first fight happened, the reason why I think that was a pinnacle fight for me was that I stood there walking into the ring and listening to the crowd, listening to the noise. And I knew right then that MMA is changed and it was never going to go away. As huge as it was, we were on mainstream TV, Best Damn Sports Show, Feud of the Year. We were on all the news networks. We had broken the barrier to mainstream circuit TV. And I knew standing there, walking in the ring after all the motions I did prior to that fight, and walking into the ring with the crowd there, and as noisy as it was unbelievably loud. And I knew right then and there that we had changed the face of MMA right there.
Yeah, that was a very special time. And fast forward years later, now the UFC's on Fox. It's the cornerstone of the new Fox Sports 1 channel. But I've talked to a number of people, some prominent veterans who told me, hey man, I love MMA, but there are way too many fights on TV right now to keep up with. Do you feel like MMA is oversaturated right now, or did you feel like it was going to go that direction anyway, given how fast the sport was growing?
Well, I think that I think it's oversaturated. I don't think there's any control over it right now. There's no really ranking systems. There's really no grooming. There's no, like, have a guy fight this guy and then have him fight this guy and then have him fight this guy, and if he beats this guy, depending on how he looks, he'll get a shot at the title. There's really not like boxing or any other sport where you're moving up the ranks to be able to challenge for a title. There's really no roadmap to what these guys have to do to get a shot at the title. So it's all over the place. And for it to last as long as it had, with being as unorganized as it is, it speaks to itself on how popular this thing is. Because it's really, if you look at it, it is not a well-run business. It is all over the place with actual no really remedy of what they're doing or no end goal. It's just, yeah, let's do that. But what's the purpose? You know, are we grooming for this? Are we grooming for that? You know, like the reality show, which is the Ultimate Fighter. That's my concept. You know, I mean, they took that concept. No one will ever mention that came out of my book. I had the Fighter Sounds. I was the one that developed that. But nobody ever mentions that. They're afraid of giving credit where credit's due. We don't want to do that. So you see where it goes. You're going, okay, they got that thing going. I was like, that's a great move. But what is it for? I thought it was for building new talent. But what they do is they go in there and they put these guys in the ring and they fight. And if they've got any talent at all, they throw them right into the UFC. Like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Let's put him in the UFC. People want to see him right now. It's like Brock Lesnar could have been one of the best ever. But they threw him in with guys that had 15 fights. Threw him in there when he had 2 fights. Expecting him to be able to handle all the TV pressure and all the hype. Which he's not going to say he couldn't or didn't. You know, I mean, he's a man. But when you talk about professional athletes in sports, you don't throw people into the pit. And even if they win a couple, you're shortening their career. You could have groomed them. You could have built him up for 10 fights, dominating somebody. Having him go through the middle rankings, the small rankings, middle rankings, upper rankings, and then up there where the guys are a little better. Just destroying people like they did with Mike Tyson when he first started out. Guy had 15 fights before he ever stepped in and really took on anybody that was a real competitor. Even though he had the ability to beat all those champions, why? Why won't you make this guy like an animal, building himself up towards that world title so everybody's watching and screaming for him, wanting him to fight the guy, but you hold him back. You make him keep fighting up the ranks one at a time. Make him earn his stripes up that ranking. And they didn't do that with Brock, you know, and it really did it. I personally, in my opinion, I think they burned him out. I think they put him in a situation where his body failed him. And I think it's happened to a lot of guys on the Ultimate Fighter show, whereas that they haven't earned their right to be in the UFC ring. They need to have a system. They need to control that system, and everybody needs to go through that system and build them up so the fans know who's coming. We'll just go, oh, this guy just won the Ultimate Fighter. He dominated. He's just impressive. Throw him in there 1 or 2 fights, and then he's fighting for a title. You're killing it. It's way too soon, man. Make these guys like monsters. Make them destroy 15 guys before they get a shot. But each guy's got to be better. You know what I mean? Can't keep throwing them with bad guys, but each guy is a different step. Each guy is a different level and a different person and a better fighter. So when you do get to that level up there, you've destroyed went all the way through the rankings with guys that are supposed to be on their way up too. And you keep going up and up and up and up until you earn that shot at fighting for a title.
So do you think maybe UFC, I mean, UFC does take a lot of elements of pro wrestling into its booking. I mean, they usually try to book what's best for business as far as, like, you know, look at Chael Sonnen versus John Jones. I mean, Chael Sonnen had no business being in that fight, but he made him money. It made sense. But do you think they should take it a step further, is what you're saying, and maybe do like what WWE does and have So maybe like a developmental league, you know, some kind of feeder league, so the guys can get some experience. So by the time they're brought up to the UFC level, they'll be ready to handle themselves against anybody that's top 10, top 15?
Well, I think they need to have guys, a handful of guys, in every weight class that they look at as prospects. And then those prospects, they put them in there with guys as they're moving up. They put them in with tougher guys each time. Maybe one guy's a great grappler, they put him in with him. The other guy's predominantly a great striker, they put him in with him. Then they get a guy that's more well-rounded, and they put him in with him. And each guy starts to get better and better as he goes up. And as long as he keeps winning, then you go up to the next two guys that you said both of them were prospects. They both had about 10 fights, 15 fights. Now they both all won both their fights. Now whoever wins this fight gets a shot at the title. Now you have just built a huge pay-per-view event without having a main event. You got two guys that are prospects fighting in the main event because everybody's watched them go up through the rankings knowing that these guys win. They're going to fight each other, and whoever wins is getting a shot at the title. Now you got two main events. You got the guys that are going shoot for that shot at the title, and then next time around, boom, you have the guy that won fighting for the title. But there's no trail for people to follow any guys that are up and coming. That's where they're missing the boat. They're losing an identity on their characters. They're not building characters. They could be building these guys as they're moving up on their road. If one guy gets beat that they had a prospect for, well, you know, he goes back down, he's got to start all over again, and then they got to find another guy who's doing well and match him up against that guy. And you know what I'm saying? And just keep building him and building him. The guy that stands on the top at the end, he's a superstar now. He hasn't even fought for a title yet, but he's a superstar now. And then he goes into a pay-per-view event and he fights a guy that's a superstar. And now your ratings are going to go up, and now you've got people who have identity and they're popular. But we're not doing that. They're just throwing guys around and trying to put together the best fight at this particular time and not building anything going forward. You got to set standards. You got to have at least a concept on how everybody's earning shots at the title. Yeah, my dad, I was 13 years old when I went into his home. I was in placement from the time I was 10 years old till I was 18. I was a ward of the court. I got put there for strong arm robbery at 10, and I got stabbed. So I went into placement, finally ended up at the Shamrock Boys Home in Susanville, California. My father was there. Wasn't my father then, but it was Shamrock Boys Home. And he showed me I was a very angry individual. I was always fighting. I was a very violent individual. I already had a couple of assault charges, strong arm robbery. I got stabbed. I was a very violent kid, angry. And he showed me how to turn my anger into something positive. And he found that for me. It was football, and it was wrestling, and it was sports. I was able to take that anger and do something positive with it. And it really made me feel like I could actually be a part of a normal life because he showed me how to vent. For a while, though, I didn't think I could because I couldn't control it. And he showed me how to do that. And, you know, the thing is, though, he worked with a lot of other kids that weren't athletic. And what he would do is he would find out what their tendencies were. On the guys who played music, they got into their music. They were able to vent through music, like rapping and drawing and acting and singing. And, you know, there's so many multiple things that you could do to help vent frustration into something positive. And my dad was the best. He helped over 3,000 kids during his lifetime. And I tell you what, me and my brother Frank, we're very fortunate that he really took us under his wing and that he showed us a direction because there's no way that we would be where we're at today without him.
You're already in the UFC Hall of Fame. Could we possibly see you in the near future in the WWE Hall of Fame?
Well, I would think that I've earned the right to be there, considering I think I was one of the guys that helped change the face of wrestling during that era. You know, everything in life has got its political side, and so I just don't know, you know, whether or not that'll happen, considering some of the people that aren't happy with me. So we'll just see what happens. Again, like I said, I don't think it's fair for someone to be able to change history because of, you know, their dislikes or likes of somebody. But it is what it is, and this is something I have to deal with.
Now, did you leave on good terms back in, when did you leave, 2000? before he went back to Pride, or before he went to Pride, I should say, and went back to MMA?
I thought I did. I thought I did. But you know, who knows? I don't know. I've always been trying to get an answer of why that I haven't been accepted back, or I haven't been invited to some of the Hall of Fame stuff. And I've never got an answer. It's almost like the door's been just shut in front of me, and no one from the office is allowed to speak with me. I don't know. I really don't know. It's really weird.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, do you mind me asking you if you had a good relationship or not with Triple H? And they're grooming him to essentially take over Vince's spot.
I think Triple H is, I think he has a problem with me. One, I defeated him, 3 times coming in. I know when I first came in, he was really pissed off that I went over on him several times. That's not my call. That's not something that, is really my fault. It is what it is, and, so I don't know. Again, like I said, I think that it's a shame because you can't have people like that in that position who are going to be holding people out because of the way that they feel towards them. Because eventually, in the long run, I promise you, that's going to kill the WWE. It will kill it sooner or later. With attitudes like that, it will kill the WWE. And I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm guessing, just like an opinion. But again, just like I said with opinions and proving me wrong, I would like to be proven wrong that it's not that. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with what? My work in the ring? I don't think that could be it. I think I've done pretty well. But if that is it, someone tell me. Tell me what it was. Don't just leave me hanging here thinking that, that it's something to do personally. Because if it's something to do personally, I'd like to fix it. I'd like to make sure that it's not a personal thing and shake hands and try and figure out what it is that we can fix it. But no one's talking to me, so I don't know.
And it's weird, though. I was going to ask you if you think it had to do with maybe the fallout from the Montreal Screwjob, but in 1998, you had a pretty damn good year. I think you won the Intercontinental title, you won the King of the Ring, you were in the Corporation, you won the tag titles with Big Boss Man, so it's like, if there was ever... if there was ever a time where you were actually going to get, heat, it probably would have been the fact that you were associated with Bret and after the Screwjob, but that didn't happen.
No, like I said, it's really a weird deal to me, and it's almost like it's not a collaborative situation. It's an individual. It seems like, because no one else that I've heard from or talked to knows why. They all don't understand why I'm not there. Even some of the fans are like, "Well, why? That's crazy. You were one of the guys in that attitude era that made a huge difference." Why they brought these other guys back that, in my opinion, I could probably work circles around. And I'm in great shape. I'm in really good shape. I'm ripped. I'm big. So it's not my looks. I don't think it's my attitude, because I thought I was pretty good about trying to be good to everybody, trying to work with them. And, I speak my mind about things, if that upsets people, I'm sorry about that, but I would rather somebody be honest with me rather than say that, oh, well, we're cool, we're good, brother, and then go behind my back and talk crap. I'm out front with it. I say everything up front. So if there's an issue, someone can come talk to me, not say, hey, I heard you said this. No, you heard me say it because I said it and everybody heard it. So I'm just up front. And I would think that would be a positive thing.
Well, I would imagine they don't have... This is the thing, though. You're in WWE 13, and presumably you may or may not be in 2K14. So I would think if they didn't want you associated at all with WWE, that they wouldn't have you in their video game. Was it just something where THQ made the call and said, hey, Ken, we're putting you in our game. Is that cool? Can you sign over your rights? Or did they just kind of do it without your consent, and all of a sudden, hey, you got a video game check in the mail?
Well, yeah, I know they've been asking me to sign over my rights, but I can't do that. I own my name, and the world's most dangerous man, and so, I use that, so I can't do that. So, so I don't know. I don't know. It would be nice to know. I have put out my feelers and tried to get answers, and I've gotten nothing back. So, I've done my part. I really have.
Mm-hmm.
the fans, I don't know how many fans I've talked to, but it's all been positive about me coming back. So I don't get it.
Do more fans remember you for your WWE days or your UFC days? Or is it a little bit of both?
I think it goes hand in hand. I think people look at me as being the guy that brought in submissions, the guy that was the shooter, the fighter, the tough guy, the crazy man. And that all goes hand in hand with my career in the MMA world because everybody knows it. So when people know me, they know that that's where I came from and that's what I brought to the WWE.
Why'd you never come back to TNA? As Ira Nobler notes, you were the first ever TNA World Champion. He wants to know, what was it like being the first NWA champion in the TNA era? And I'll ask you, why did they never bring you back?
I don't know. Maybe because I hadn't had the time to do it over the past few years. But, now I have time. I'm definitely interested in trying to help them, get better. I'd like to be able to get back in there and roll with some of these guys and have some fun. And, they scratch my back, I scratch theirs. And so we'll see what happens. I put the feelers out to them, so we'll see if somebody contacts me and maybe we can start rolling forward with something like that. That way, at least I can go out there and have fun, man. And I miss the fans. I miss being able to go in there and work these angles. It's fun, man. I really enjoyed it.
Would you be open to doing any kind of independent wrestling? I'm not saying, a shot every weekend, but if somebody called you up with the right financial offer and said, hey, Ken, we want you to come to New Jersey or whatever state and wrestle this guy, would you be pretty open to that? Or are you kind of right now just holding out for WWE, TNA, and maybe an opportunity in Japan, either with New Japan, All Japan, or Great Muda's new group?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to, any independent stuff. I've never put myself above that. I think it's a great place to go and knock some ring rust off. But it's also got to be saying, I'm not going to just go in there and take a chance and not be financially set for it,
Of course. And do you think Japanese MMA will ever make a comeback, asks Patrick.
Oh, absolutely. I think anything that is as popular as MMA, pro wrestling, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, boxing, I think it's always going to be around, and no matter how dead it gets, it will come back.
Did you and Don Frye actually squash your beef after your epic fight, or was there still some underlying tension between you two?
That's the thing I love about Don Frye, is that no matter how personal or insulting that you can get towards each other prior to a fight, it was prior to the fight. After the fight's over, you shake hands, you hug, and you move forward. So me and Don Frye have been good for a very long time. We squashed it. We knew we were both angry. We both getting prepared for the fight. We both wanted to win. And we went in there and we fought. We both did our best. And we squashed it. It's over. We've been friends for a long time, and to this day, we're still good friends.
Great to hear. Yeah, definitely two UFC legends and MMA legends for sure. And Don Frye actually did pretty well for himself in pro wrestling as well. I wouldn't say he was the worker you were in the ring, but he made some pretty good money in New Japan, back in the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with the kind of person and his character that, he was able to put the tough guy aside and be able to go in there and let these guys that have made a career out of it teach him how to do it.
Do you feel like the level you attained in your UFC career matched the level of fame you attained in Japan with PANCRASE, or was there no comparison between the two?
No, I think in Japan, athletically, I competed against guys from all over the world, and guys that were at the top of their game in their particular sport, whether it was K1 or wrestling or Olympic judo, or jiu-jitsu. I competed against guys from all over the world. I had a 2-day tournament, 16-man, that I won and was crowned the first king of PANCRASE. That was when I was at my peak and at my best. And people feared me. Bas Rutten, I destroyed him. And we all know Bas Rutten was a great fighter. Like I said, I had the ability to be able to adapt to this sport very quickly, and so did Bas. I know Bas has already made mention that, I was young. I didn't know a whole lot. Yeah, that's true for the first fight. Where I choked him out at 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Now, The second fight we had was a year later. Okay? I had only been doing it 6 months longer than Bas Rutten. 6 months longer than Bas Rutten. So, after a year had gone by, I'd been doing it for a year and a half, and Bas Rutten had done it for a year. And I went in there and beat him in 1 minute and 45 seconds for the second fight. So the excuse that he makes, that he just didn't know enough at that time, how do you explain 12 minutes? And then him, a year later, after beating everybody, his skill level went through the roof. He was very quickly, caught on very quickly. He was very good, earned the right to challenge me for the belt, and I destroyed him in 1 minute and 45 seconds. So when he says that he was getting better, that means I was getting better also along the way. So how is he going to catch up to me if I'm constantly getting better?
Fair
so
point.
The excuse of saying, well, I didn't know a whole lot. Yeah, for the first one, I give you that. Even though you were a K1 fighter, and I was a wrestler, and I'd only been doing it for 6 months at that time, and you've been doing this thing your whole life as a fighter since you were 5 years old. You were doing K1, kickboxing, and I did wrestling since I was probably 13, 14 years old. So, really, that's a poor excuse. I don't like it when that happens, where someone makes an excuse of why they got beat twice. It is what it is, you know. Same thing with Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz was in his prime. He beat me in his prime. It is what it is. What are you going to do about it? It is what it is. I fought him. I did the best I could. He beat me. He was the better man that night, period.
Yeah, and I feel like the Shamrocks in general were always Bas Rutten's kryptonite. I mean, didn't Frank beat him in his debut?
Yeah, Frank beat him for the Intercontinental title, for the interim title. It was, that belt was up for grabs because the one that held it was injured. So Bas and Frank fought for it, and Frank beat him. And then the second time around, Bas beat Frank. Now, and Frank had been doing it less time than Bas. So, you know, Frank caught on very fast. But, yeah, so I don't like that, you know, when basically I, you know, carried him the first fight, 12 minutes. Then he'd been doing it for quite some time, and beaten people to get to that spot to fight me. And then I destroy him in 1 minute and 45 seconds. And then he says, well, if I had been doing it a little longer, it wouldn't have happened like that. What are you saying? I'm just going to stop training so you can catch up to me?
Yeah, and Terry Allen asks, did you... I'm assuming you didn't, but I'll ask it this question anyway. Did you invent the ankle lock in professional wrestling?
Absolutely. The ankle lock is what I brought in. Kurt Angle does, a couple other people do it, but they don't do it right.
And what do you mean by they don't do it right? As in, like, they don't put it on like a heel hook, or what do you think? Why don't they do it right?
I mean, like if they had to do it and make somebody tap out, they wouldn't be able to, because the guy could move and get out. They don't block. They don't know how to block and secure the move.
Mm-hmm. So were you offended when Kurt Angle took your ankle lock? Did he call you up and say, hey, Ken, is it all right if I use it? Or do you kind of look at it as flattery since he is imitating you?
No, but he didn't call me up and ask me to do it. He just did it. But I look at it like this. I don't own anything.
Yeah.
People can do whatever they want to do. It's not my move. I didn't create that. I brought it into the WWE, but somebody taught me in Japan, so I don't own those things. Those guys can do whatever they want to do. It's an open market. Go for it. If you do it better, awesome. If you don't, well, then props to me. But it is a flattery when people start doing it. Look at pro wrestling now. Before I came into pro wrestling, there was a few rest holds. And then there was a sharpshooter, and there was the diamond cutter, and there's a few things in that people used for their actual, you know, big move. But now you see all these moves in there, arm bars and key locks and chokes and roll through knee bars and leg locks. It's like now you've got, you know, 1,000 different submission holds. I brought that in. I changed the face of pro wrestling.
Who did you feel like was the best Japanese PANCRASE fighter other than Funaki and Suzuki?
Yeah, Funaki and Suzuki were really good, but I thought Takahashi was coming along, really coming along fast. For the Japanese, I thought he had a lot of potential. And then I would have to say for just, period, people in their period. Schultz, big tall guy, 7 foot tall. His last name was Schultz, something like that. Just had tremendous ability for chokes with his arms. He's like 7 foot tall. Very difficult guy to beat. And other than that, I think, going back to probably the beginning, I think Chikata was phenomenal. Maeda was phenomenal. Back in their day, they were a sight to see. So I think that there was different eras of guys that came through that Japanese circuit that had their moments in their time. So it was impressive. No, I'm pretty happy with what I've done, but I tell you, I think Tank Abbott was one that never happened that I wish would have happened. It didn't happen, but it is what it is. He never really got to reach that elite championship level. He'd always get beat right for that title when he was getting ready to challenge for it. He would get beat because, he didn't really have all the skills he needed to move on to that elite level, but he was a great marketing. He had great marketing. He was able to market himself. A lot of people related to him. So, and that's where Tito Ortiz got his marketing skills, was from Tank. I mean, he really did show Tito that you can't just be a pretty boy and, have good skills, man. You got to be able to talk some crap and take that reputation that I have since you come from my school and carry it, one step farther. Yeah, it does. It gets pretty emotional. So it was very enlightening, and I thought it was time. It was due.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. Ken, I really appreciate the time. I'll get you out of here on this, man. What's one piece of advice you give aspiring athletes, particularly aspiring MMA fighters and even pro wrestlers, since you were successful in both businesses?
I would say that, especially with the landscape and everything now, is that when you have your opportunities, you need to make the most of them, and that you really, really need to manage and build something other than fighting while you have the opportunity to be known. If I could tell anybody, you need to build a business. You need to build something that's going to carry on after fighting. So use your image and use your name and use whatever it is that you're creating during this free time of publicity and free time of advertisement from fighting, and use that to build some sort of business that will carry on after you're done fighting.
Wise words from a wise man. Where can fans find you online, Ken?
KenShamrock.com.
You're not on Twitter? Come on, man.
I'm on Twitter, yep. Ken Shamrock Twitter. Facebook. LionsdenReno@gmail.com. That's my email. So, yeah, come on, check it out. We just got our new website built. We're getting ready to put up our shopping list. Going to have some cool stuff for sale here in the next couple months. So stay tuned for it and be ready. I know I'm going to England here in the next couple days. I'm going to go and commentate the Bellator fights up there, or is it the Bama fights up there in England. And so I'm excited to go up there and watch those guys fight. We got some good talent up there in England. And great fans. I love the fans up there. So it's going to be interesting. It should be fun.
Awesome. Well, it definitely seems like you got a lot of great things going on, Ken. We thank you so much for your time, man. Definitely appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless.